Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. I'm joined by Jordan today. Beyond. No Dom today. No guest today. Glad to have you back, Jordan. I guess we'll hop into it, what we've been playing. For me, these last couple of weeks have actually been pretty busy. I've picked up a good amount of extra freelance work because I'm trying to just build up enough extra money so I don't feel too bad when I end up buying my PS4. Because I just don't like spending a lot of money.
Classic Jerrad.
Yeah. So I've just been doing a lot of extra work, but the time I did have, I actually was able to get some more time into Wolfenstein 2. I think I'm nearing the end. I know you haven't played it yet, Jordan, so I'm not going to spoil anything, and I know you wouldn't really know where I'm at. But I think I'm about to enter New Orleans, which from what I've heard from Dom is I think the third act of the game. So I'm pretty close to the ending of the game. There's some crazy stuff that happens in Wolfenstein 2 that I did not see coming, which is really cool. I don't even want to partially talk about it because I think even saying some slight things could be spoilery, but it's really crazy. I don't think you'll see it coming either when you get a chance to play it. Other than that, I also had some time to put into Ultra Moon, which I finished. I finished the main campaign and I finished the post-game event, which was the Rainbow Rocket, which is essentially Team Rocket comes back to Alola, where they come to Alola, and you end up fighting a bunch of bosses from previous games. So you fight the lead guys from Sapphire and Ruby, and you also fight the lead guys from Diamond and Pearl, and they lead up to you actually running into Giovanni, and you fight Giovanni again, which is really cool. An interesting thing, I don't want to go too long in the tooth on this, but people are speculating that Pokemon Sun and Moon are hinting that the next Pokemon mainline entry game, so that's going to be the Pokemon Switch game, is going back to Kanto, which is obviously the region from Gen 1, red and blue and yellow, and green, obviously, for Japan. And the reason they say that is throughout the story, I don't know if this is only in Ultra Moon. Did you play Ultra or did you play regular, Jordan?
Just Sun.
Just Sun. Okay, so this might have been in the regular versions, or this might have just been added in Ultra. But Lily, the side character, at the end of the game, she leaves to the Kanto region, and I don't even know. Yeah, she had to have been part of the base game. So at the end of the game, she leaves to the Kanto region. I'm just giving you all the reason why people assume it might go to Kanto. Throughout the game, they mention Kanto. Alola itself has a lot of ties to Kanto in terms of Professor Oak's brother or cousin or whatever Samson Oak is supposed to be. Obviously, the alternate Pokemon that have different looks are from the Kanto region, with Vulpix and Sandshrew and all of them having their Alolan forms. Also, at the end of the game, like I said, you run into Team Rocket, who was introduced in the Kanto region, and they come back and you fight Giovanni, and Giovanni kind of basically says, I'm going to go back to Kanto and set things right. And in the Pokemon anime, which isn't too surprising, I think they actually do this at the end of every season, so this is one thing you wouldn't want to super read into. But at the end of his adventures in Alola, he states that he wants to go back to Kanto and start fresh. Which I think the thing that people are keying in there is starting fresh. I think a lot of times Ash talks about going back to Kanto and stuff like that, but he specifically in this, and there's a clip of it, he says, I want to go back to Kanto, start fresh from the beginning again. So basically all these different things are the Pokemon Company talking about the Kanto region through this newest game, on top of the fact that Masuda, who's one of the main producers and composers for Pokemon, has been really heavy on Twitter teasing Gen 1 specifically. He mentioned he'd been listening to the red and blue soundtrack, red and green, he stated, because that was their versions. He also has been, I forgot the other things, but essentially before Sun and Moon came out, he also teased the next generation by posting a picture of a moon on his Twitter. That was before Sun and Moon were announced. And a lot of the hints he's giving now seem to be related to the Kanto region. And what it looks like is it won't be a remake, but it'll be a retelling of or a new story in Kanto, which I think is a smart idea because there's actually a big portion of the Pokemon community that doesn't want to go back to Kanto and do a remake again, which kind of sucks because that's all I want. But I think going back to Kanto gives the quote-unquote Gen 1ers the nostalgia that they want, right? But saying it's a retelling or a different thing, or like in the future, maybe it's a different Kanto where cities are bigger or different, it gives the game a newer quality to it, and it also is a little bit more appealing to those people who aren't really attached to Kanto, maybe. I think it could fit both of those. It's Pokemon Ultra Moon. It wasn't my... I think I was a little harsh on it at the beginning because I really didn't like the way they handled the narrative and the story elements of like stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. But at the end of the game, with the post-release game content and stuff like that, I don't think I'd be nearly as harsh on it now. I wouldn't say it's at the bottom of any Pokemon game I've ever played. I would still hold Silver and Gold above that. That's including the remakes of Soul Silver and Heart Gold. I kind of just lump those two together because they're the same games, a lot of the way. And then behind that would be Gen 1. And then I would probably put Gen 3, and then I would put this. I enjoyed this game more at the end of it, with everything culminated more than Black and White. I didn't play X and Y, so I have no opinions on that. Or Diamond and Pearl. I play Diamond and Pearl, but I would put this above both of those. What else? I also played Marvel Strike Force, that mobile game. It's a toilet game, not much there.
Toilet game.
It's a toilet game. Not like it's trash or anything, but it's a game I just mess around with. Yeah. I also mentioned to you before we started the show that I read what seems like a prelude to the Amazing Spider-Man Fresh Start #1 for Marvel.
Right.
Yeah, the free comic book day release. Really interesting. Art's amazing. Ryan Otley kills it. Obviously, he's from Invincible. The story's really cool. I haven't read a whole lot of current Spider-Man comics, so I'm not familiar with his situation. I don't want to spoil anything because Jordan hasn't read it yet, but some of the ideas that they introduce in this Prelude comic are interesting in terms of where Peter's at in his life and the things surrounding him and stuff like that. Don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil it. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's pretty much it in terms of everything I ingested. I didn't
consumed.
I didn't. I'm trying to think if I watched anything. Nothing of note. No. It's pretty much it for me. What about you, Jordan? I haven't talked to you in like 2 weeks, so.
Right. So I've obviously played more God of War. 6 or 8 hours into that game, and my initial complaints still stand. I think that we dove in pretty far to that. The combat is still like really close to being amazing to me, but it's just not quite snappy enough, and there's times where I'm trying to dodge and it feels like it's a split second too late and I'm getting fucked over. But it still is a great game and I am enjoying it. I do, I don't know, man. I'm in a tough spot because I've listened to a lot of people talk about it now. Not anything spoilery, but people just hype the fuck out of this game. Dom's really high on it and has talked about how, he can't wait for me to finish it and all that. And I totally can see how over the course of 30 hours it's going to have a lot of cool stuff in it, but it is tedious right now. Like they're just revealing so little, and I know a lot of people don't agree with this. A lot of people were saying that it's like perfectly paced and that the crumbs that they kind of start you out with are really well done, but so far it's been a little bit frustrating for me because I didn't have much expectations for the game. I was just, excited to play a new God of War, but then everyone talking about how cool and how twisty, turny the story is and how much amazing shit there is in there. Not that there isn't going to be down the road, but I just feel like at this point, this many hours in, I would have liked a little bit more to kind of get me going. For example, I was listening to Kind of Funny talk about it today, and like Jared Petty was saying how he thinks it's probably the best written video game that he's ever played and better than The Last of Us in that sense. And you know me, Jared, I'll be the first one to give Naughty Dog some shit, but I was like, dude, the way that Last of Us grips you from a writing standpoint, from a story standpoint, immediately, I just have not been gripped by this game in the same way. And it's solid, and it is well written, and it is well acted, and it is well produced. But dude, The Last of Us, every moment of every cutscene pretty much is gripping and is tantalizing all at the same time. It's not just tantalizing. It's not just planting breadcrumbs. Like, every single encounter that they have, Joel and Ellie, whether it be with Tess or with the brothers down the road, or I can't remember the lady who's in charge of the Fireflies' name that initially gets Joel to take Ellie. But there's just so many moments from the start to the very tip of the end that are just so well written. And I think that God of War's close, and it certainly surpasses so far a lot of video game writing, but I'm just not quite seeing it yet. And I mean, sure, I'm not fully 30 hours in, and I haven't beaten the game yet, but I think 6+ hours in, with me having both played the story and several side missions at this point, I think I can at least say that as the game starts out, it does not have that same gripping feeling narratively that The Last of Us does. So it feels like I'm just being Debbie Downer over here. Obviously, I'm definitely excited to jump back in and see where this goes, but I just cannot stop hearing from all different angles how, oh, you got to keep going, it gets so crazy, there's so many twists and turns, you're not going to believe what happens, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just making the hours where shit doesn't happen even a little bit more difficult. And honestly, I think I would enjoy this game way more if I were playing it in a vacuum, just because I think you know me well enough to know that I am usually not a subscriber of hype in many ways. And so when people are just, shitting their fucking pants over this stuff, it doesn't ruin the experience or soil it, if you will. But it definitely just kind of nags at me a little bit in the back of my mind. So we'll see, and I'm certainly happy to get to those twists and turns and hopefully be floored, have my jaw drop when that does happen, but we'll have to wait and see. Besides playing God of War, I rewatched Deadpool, getting ready for Deadpool 2 coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, Jared, but I fucking love that movie, man. It's so cool. A lot of different things they did really well. For one, he's wearing a suit that the real fucking Deadpool in the comics would wear, which is a big hang up for me in a lot of comic book movies and TV shows, because they just try to make them too grounded, I think, and sap all of the color out of it. But he really looks like Deadpool, and he obviously really acts like Deadpool, and obviously the movie's hilarious, but the action is really well done too. And I was after the movie, I rewatched the test footage that had originally come out that kind of got the ball rolling for the movie to finally be made, and the way that they essentially remake that stuff in the film is so cool. And the attention to detail in that movie is just superb. So and then you got some X-Men action in there with Colossus and Megasonic Teenage Warhead. So very good movie, very excited for the second one. Of course, wrote a bunch of comics this past week, as I do. Been reading Avengers vs. X-Men. I think I mentioned that, which leads into Marvel Now, and really enjoying that. It's a fucking cool ass event that they did. I know events can kind of get shit on in the world of comics a lot, but seeing the Avengers and X-Men fight over the Phoenix Force has been really cool, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And then Red Superman Reborn, which is a little event for him that kind of, I would say, kind of fixes some of the shit where they've got these two different versions of Superman, pre-New 52 and New 52 Superman existing in the same universe, kind of, and they kind of find a way to get rid of some of the confusion. Needless to say, there's plenty of comic book bullshit going on there. But I think it'll definitely, the way they conclude it will put things in a good position moving forward. Besides that, a little shout out to Krypton. I don't know if you're watching this or not, Jerrad, but obviously this is about the planet Krypton where Superman's from, and is actually some of the most interesting stuff to me about Superman or Supergirl, like the Kryptonian stuff and the actual like alien sci-fi stuff, really before they were ever kicking around and doing stuff, is some of my favorite of the Superman mythos. So I really like diving deep into that lore and going back before obviously the planet was destroyed. So a little shout out there. And that's about it.
You were talking about Deadpool. Did you see the exchange that happened between the Deadpool account and the Russo brothers?
I didn't.
So I don't know if you saw that before Avengers Infinity War came out, the Russo brothers, maybe it was Marvel Studios or Kevin Feige, somebody, they posted that image of that like note saying, "Thank you guys for 10 years. Thanos demands your silence. Like, please keep spoilers to yourself."
Spoiling it. Yeah.
In Deadpool fashion, he made a note saying like, "Hey, don't spoil our movie either," kind of thing. Kind of the same setup with the picture and everything, just like obviously making fun of that. It was like Deadpool demands your, oh damn, I'm messing up, yada, whatever. And then the Russo brothers simply replied with a picture of the Infinity Gauntlet flipping him off, which is really funny. So it was a nice back and forth there. Yeah, I guess we'll hop into. I'm actually going to be watching Deadpool next week, so I'm excited to rewatch it too, leading up to the release of the sequel. I love that movie so much.
Hell yeah.
Let's hop into the news. We have a decent amount of news stories today. The first one revolves around Anthem. So Blake Jorgenson, who's the CFO of EA, revealed in an earnings call that Anthem, we previously knew was going to be coming out in the next fiscal year. He stated that it's going to be releasing on the last month of that fiscal year, so we know that it's going to be coming out in March of 2019. This makes sense for BioWare. It's the release date for both Mass Effect Andromeda and Mass Effect 3. They like that early year slot, so it makes sense as long as they hit it. Another thing attached to this that I didn't include in the notes was that Casey Hudson actually posted a new blog post the day of us recording this on the BioWare blog, and he basically answered fans' concerns about, the typical question that comes up when you see these games that are very much inspired by the Destiny layout, right? The persistent world games. He basically talked about that they're one of their main goals is to make sure that you can play this by yourself and have a good time with it. He said too that though it's multiplayer, he knows that the biggest concern there is that when you have a game that's multiplayer and you need a story to work for everyone, it doesn't necessarily feel like a BioWare game, because BioWare games are all about your journey and your story. And though I didn't write it down, they actually, Casey Hudson had them do a new company, not motto, mission statement. Every company has their own mission statement. They actually did a different one for theirs, and it basically said, "We are BioWare, we create worlds," and then it goes into a bunch of other stuff. But it's basically, I think Casey Hudson was what they needed in terms of getting back on the right track for BioWare. We'll see, obviously, if Anthem lives up to the hype, but he basically talked about them switching their mission statement, talking about the concerns they know fans have with this type of game, talking about that you can play this game single player because they want it to feel like a BioWare game uniquely. And he also mentioned that they have another team working on something very much related to Dragon Age, which is odd that he didn't say that he didn't just say that they're working on a new Dragon Age game. He said they're working on something very much close to Dragon Age. So I don't know if maybe they go forward with the lore and the world of Dragon Age, but they call it something different. But we'll see what happens there. Just an interesting blog post.
Because The Dragon Age is like a time period in
Yeah.
that world. So yeah, maybe they go to a different age.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. That world is so rich of characters and stories and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
so I don't think people would be too mad about it switching the name, because there is a reason in its lore, like you said, that makes sense for it to switch the name. Also,
Yeah.
it's a way for them to pitch it as a new IP to investors and stuff, technically, because it's not the same name.
Right.
So there's some stuff there, some leeway. I just like him keeping up with these posts. The first one was a little PR-y, like we talked about when it first was released. This one was
yeah.
a lot more, hey, we understand you guys have issues and worries. Let's talk about it. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm sure he heard a bunch of shit about how fucking kind of stone-faced that first one was, So,
Yeah. And I think Casey Hudson being on the outside looking in at BioWare the last couple of years, and just probably, he's a pretty smart guy. He probably looked at the industry and said, it's like, nowadays you need to have that connection with gamers. It's not the way it was before. Like, we need to have a direct line of communication, and I think this is the blog post is going to be that for them. The next story kind of goes with what we've been talking about the last year or so in terms of Microsoft getting new IP, getting their own first party lineup in the way that Sony does. There was actually some job postings, and the job postings stated that Microsoft's looking to hire people who have experience shipping high quality titles at quadruple A standards, experience managing internal teams and external development studios across the world, and a knowledge and understanding of the process of building new IP. This obviously seems like they're hiring people for a new studio, and the job listings all have the location of Santa Monica. So,
what the fuck is quadruple A?
I think that's just what it's an easy way to say, like, first party exclusive without saying that, because it's like the budget that Sony and Microsoft have and Nintendo have to put behind a game. In a lot of instances, they're a lot more willing to take the risk on those than an EA though they put a lot of money behind, like, the Anthems and stuff. I think it's just, like, next level with these studios that, like, this is on our platform. It is our investment. You know what I mean? Whereas, other publishers still have to hope that it sells for somebody else's platform. I think it's just, like, quadruple A is like, oh, we're trying to hit the Last of Us is the what looks like Insomniac Spider-Man, like the high bench note. The Gears of War, the Halos. So Darrell Gallagher is a name you might not know or you might remember. He was hired last year at Xbox in a leadership role for a team, and he's formerly from Santa Monica Activision, and he was hired on, and we're going to be finding out what exactly his role is at Xbox's E3 2018 presentation, or at least that week. It's interesting because we have Phil Spencer, who's the head, I'm just directly correlating this to something we know, which is Sony, right? So you have Phil Spencer, who's Sean Layden. Is Darrell Gallagher going to be the head of this new studio and, like, announce that their studio and what they're going to be working on? Obviously not the specific game, but, like, some ideas, maybe concept art or something. Does he just state that he's running a new studio? Is he not even running a new studio? And what if he's their Shuhei, right? They have him move into that kind of position. They have Aaron Greenberg and stuff, but maybe they want somebody else who's dedicated more to the AAA or quadruple A in this instance standards. It's very interesting. People are trying to make jokes about this of, like, God of War just released, so they want to make a Santa Monica studio of their own. It's like, I'm pretty sure Santa Monica has a lot of things going for it in terms of its location and stuff, and these job hirings and postings were made before. Like, I don't think it's directly correlated, right? Right. But maybe it is correlated in the sense that maybe Microsoft did research and they understood, like, we have Darrell Gallagher, like, he's a great asset. Maybe Santa Monica is a great place to establish another studio. There's reasons why there's other places there, as in Activision and Sony, right, have Santa Monica. So it's interesting. I really want to know if he comes out on stage and announces their new, is it Microsoft Santa Monica? Is that what it's called? Is he even a part of that, or is he a part of Xbox in general as a first-party consultant or leader? It's interesting. I think one thing that we are going to need to talk about when we come to our pre-E3 predictions, when we're talking about Xbox, is it's going to be exciting to see some new IP they have, but I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see some people come out and they don't have a game yet, but I think it's they announce that they're a studio that's owned by Microsoft and they're working on a Microsoft exclusive, right? And that's maybe the tough road there of like people would love to see maybe not concept art, but people would love to see the actual games they're making. But some of these studios might be so early on. Personally, I would rather see a couple of leads of the studio come up and say who they are and what they plan to do instead of just this is a studio and this is their concept art. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's going to be difficult.
I just hope that they don't name the studio Forza Factory or something. Like they have the Coalition, which is tied to Gears, and they have 343, which is tied to Halo. Like, stop naming your studios after the franchise they're working on, because it's just not a good idea. Like, you just need to be more versatile, I guess. You know, because like Guerrilla, what if they were called Killzone Studios, you know?
Yeah, but they also have like Lionhead and Rare and stuff that, they didn't create them, and I understand where you're coming from. But the thing is that
Lionhead got shot in the head.
Yeah, Coalition obviously was made with the name Coalition, but 343 was a subsidiary studio to Bungie working on Halo, and then Bungie dipped, so then they moved up. So it is a different situation there, you know? But still, it's
I'm just saying, like, you don't want to do that again, I guess. Don't, like, make a new studio and name it, like, Recore Productions or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is going to be called, like, Microsoft Santa Monica or, like, something else.
Probably not a good idea to name it Microsoft Santa Monica either.
Why not?
Because Sony Santa Monica. I mean, like, it's not that they have license over the name. You could totally name it that, but when they're clearly trying to mimic Sony's first-party output, and then one of the first studios they open is in Santa Monica right after Sony Santa Monica just, knocks out of the park with God of War. I don't know. That's a little too on the nose. I mean, that's not what I would do,
Yeah.
But
I don't think that'll be the name, really. I think they understand that, too. As a big corporation, it'll probably be called something different. I just think it would be funny to see the title Microsoft Santa Monica, because the memes and everything that would lead up to that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's interesting news though. E3, it's going to be big for Xbox. We need to see what they're coming in terms of first party exclusives and studios, and we might even see acquisitions. I still want to know where the hell Amy Hennig is. We might hear about her, maybe not on Xbox's stage, but we might hear about what Amy Hennig's doing at some point during E3. I hope. Maybe even Gamescom at the latest, but
she's on an island talking to a goddamn volleyball.
It's like Captain America in the MCU. Like, she's just off the grid right now. She's going to come back as Nomad. And, we're going to see what happened. The next news story here is really close to Jordan's heart. Square Enix announced that they're going to be having an E3 presentation for the first time in 2 years. It's going to be a pre-recorded video conference, so Nintendo Direct style. It's going to be happening Monday, June 11th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's going to take the morning slot on Monday, which is going to be Square Enix with its video. Then you're going to have Ubisoft. And though the time hasn't been revealed yet, we assume it's going to be PlayStation because they always take that Monday night spot. It's interesting because this is their first E3 presentation in 2 years. And I want to talk about what do we think they're going to be showcasing. So some of the things we expect or assume are Just Cause 4, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Hear me say,
exactly.
Please, oh baby, don't go.
Yeah, Just Cause 4, Kingdom Hearts 3, Avengers we could possibly see too. Though I assume that we see this first at Xbox, and then we'll see it again on Square Enix's video. Tomb Raider as well could be the same exact thing. And then we start talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, if that's going to pop up. Final Fantasy 16. Some people are assuming we might hear an announcement about Final Fantasy 14 finally coming to Xbox, which would make some people happy. Wouldn't matter to me either way, but that'd be a good announcement for people who have been waiting on that. Jordan, do you think we get Kingdom Hearts 3's release date announced at Square Enix's stage? Remember, they're before PlayStation. Would we get it there?
Yeah, we will. Well, we're getting it at E3. I'm not sure which one, but I would assume you're probably getting it at Square Enix. But yeah, I definitely think, unless something catastrophic happens, I think that game's coming out this fall. And then also, just side note, I had a lot of fun with Just Cause 3, so I'd be totally down with Just Cause 4.
Yeah. Square Enix is also making Octopath Traveler, so we could see a little bit more there. But I think that is definitely a Square Enix presentation of filling it in, right? Filling in the gaps.
It's about to release though, right? Will
it releases in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be they could have a thing
Launch
at the end
trailer
talking about
type of deal.
Yeah, something. I'm trying to think of what else. Do you think we see Life is Strange 2? That's published by Square Enix, right? Life is Strange?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that's weird because Vampire is made by Don't Nod, but not published by Square Enix.
Yeah.
So that's coming out around that time, I think, and so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Don't Nod's deal is because Vampire looks like that higher quality AA type of deal, but then they are also working on Life is Strange 2, so it's possible, but I feel like they've probably they just don't seem like a big enough studio to be pumping that shit out that quick, so who knows.
I think we get a tease. I think we get a hey, it exists.
Yeah.
I don't think we get. Honestly, I could even see it being like a title screen animation type thing, where we just see Life is Strange 2, not a date, not any gameplay, nothing.
I mean, you probably don't want to play gameplay, show gameplay at an E3 presentation for that game anyways, so.
Yeah. We're also not sure how long the video is going to be, so I assume it's probably going to be no longer than 25 minutes. Probably less than that, maybe even a 15-minute video. It depends on everything they're going to be showing. It's very odd. Square Enix is obviously a huge publisher, and they have a lot of things under their belt, but I don't know. A lot of their stuff, I would much rather see the big blowout. Like Avengers and Tomb Raider, I would much rather see on Xbox's stage and see on Microsoft's giant stage, right? Seeing it get the full blowout. Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, if we were to see that, those I think would play better on Sony's stage, and I think we'll get those if they show up. I think they will also be on those stages. It's just weird to also have this Square Enix thing where it's like, oh, but we want to be a part of it too. You're going to see our stuff on the big boy stages, but we also want it. You know what I mean? So
do you really think Avengers? You think Avengers is that close?
No. I don't think it's close in terms of it releasing. I do think it's one of those things where we might see a hint at something, because remember, the only thing we got was that trailer that was Thor's hammer, Cap's shield, and Iron Man's gauntlet, I think, that were broken.
Right.
I think it could be just a cinematic trailer that we get, another hype trailer. I don't think we're even close to gameplay on that or a release date.
Right.
But I do think they want to show it because, especially with the zeitgeist surrounding Avengers Infinity War, they want to showcase that, right? Especially for their investors and stuff too, because people tend to forget E3 is also for those people to see the hype surrounding the things that they're investing in. From what we've heard, Avengers is going to have a huge budget, so they want to be like, oh, there's a reason we're putting this much money into it, because people are excited. I do think we'll get a hype-ish kind of trailer or something, a tease. I guess it's pretty much anything else about Square Enix. Are we seeing Final Fantasy 16? Can't even say that with a straight face. I don't even know why people would want to see that. I understand people like Final Fantasy and stuff, but aren't you burned by this point of from announcement, even Kingdom Hearts 3 in some capacity? It's
right.
Aren't you burned from hearing announcement to actual release? Come on now.
I'll tell you what we're gonna see from Final Fantasy. We're gonna see more Final Fantasy 15.
More DLC expansions.
Yeah, I mean, they've talked about how they've got more stuff coming out throughout this year, so yeah, it's happening. That's
it's
what you're
just
gonna see.
It's, I don't know, it's odd. It's very interesting because Square Enix is a huge publisher. It's just for some reason, and maybe I'm in the wrong, Jordan, but them having their own video thing doesn't really excite me, because I assumed we were going to see Kingdom Hearts 3 on Sony's stage, so it's not we're the only chance of us seeing it is at Square Enix. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's very odd for me.
They have enough properties for me to be excited, but just the way that they manage their shit is just so whack. And they get it right sometimes, where they fixed FF14, and then 15 didn't turn out to be too bad. But they're really starting to botch this whole 7 remake, and then Kingdom Hearts has been, Kingdom Hearts 2 was on the PS2, so it's who knows, man. yeah, I just don't. I mean, I like their properties, but I don't necessarily get excited for them just because there's kind of no reason to. It's just kind of a waste of hype and energy. So I kind of just wait until they come out. Obviously I'm excited for Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'm not chomping at the bit.
And that's the tough thing with them because, at least with Sony, though they've gotten way better in the last couple of years, I don't even think it's a problem with them anymore. But even when Sony was having trouble with delaying their games, it was, okay, this game got delayed. We're getting it in 3 months. It's locked in. It's just we have to wait a bit. With Square Enix, a 3-month delay can turn into a year delay, could turn into, so it's like you said, why even get invested with your energy levels? Like, just when it actually releases. And I think that's partially why I'm not excited for their video. Not that I'm not excited to see the games that they're going to be showing, because they have a lot of stuff I'm super excited for. It's just it's a lot of false promises, and especially for Avengers and Tomb Raider, if I see that at Xbox first, is it going to be the EA thing where we see the first trailer for Battlefield at EA and then we see the same exact trailer on Xbox's stage but in reverse? So we see the Avengers thing first on Xbox's stage, or the Tomb Raider thing, and then we just see the same video on Square Enix's thing. It's cool, why would I be excited about watching the same trailer again? It's very odd.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
The next story is a leak-ish. So there was a Walmart Canada listing for a bunch of games that haven't come out yet that people are assuming to be leaks from E3 announcements. And a lot of these games seem plausible. Some of them are odd. I'm going to go through the ones that kind of stand out, and we can have a back and forth, Jordan, in terms of what we think about him. Lego DC Villains was listed. That seems like a plausible thing we could see being announced from Lego. It's been talked about. Seems like a title of a Lego game that comes out. Nothing crazy there. Assassin's Creed is listed. So this is the first knock it, this might not be real. This might just be somebody typing in things they think will happen. It doesn't have any subtitle to it. We know Assassin's Creed isn't coming out this year. The box just literally says Assassin's Creed, so does the write-up. Assassin's Creed is also misspelled, which isn't a huge thing because they enter the information themselves. But so first, that's the first weird one, right? That's already the hint of this is odd. One of the next ones listed is Destiny Comet, which, if you're not familiar, Comet was the code name for the third piece of DLC we anticipated from Destiny 2. So if they got the information from the developers and the publishers, why would they still list it as Destiny Comet when that was the project name, right? Very odd. Borderlands 3, that could happen. Totally plausible. Gearbox needs to release something, considering their last couple of releases haven't gone off too well. That being Battleborn and what was the game that Duke Nukem was in? Bulletstorm Remaster, which I doubt flew off shelves. Super Smash Brothers, okay. Dreams, okay. Rage 2, which is interesting. We talked about before the show. I played Rage, you didn't. It's an interesting game to get a sequel. It's one of those games where when you're looking at Bethesda's conference this year, you're well, what are they going to announce? Possibly Doom 2, possibly some other things. Rage 2 could be a nice surprise. It's just very odd because it is a game and a franchise that doesn't have a lot of love behind it or anticipation. Though it's kind of weird because now Bethesda's kind of hinting at they're going to do something on May 14th that could possibly be the reveal of Rage 2, which is odd. Another game listed here is Insurgency Sandstorm. I've never played any of the Insurgency games, so that doesn't really strike a chord with me anyway. Square Enix, we talked about Just Cause 4. That's listed. That's totally possible, right? Just Cause seems to be sell decently well. Fourth entry wouldn't be that surprising. Final Fantasy VII Remake is listed. Metroid Prime 4 is listed. NBA 2K, we assume yes. Beyond Good and Evil 2 is listed, which that game is not coming out in at least another 2 years. Good luck with that. And The Division 2 is the other thing listed on here. So there's some games that are totally plausible, right, Jordan? But there's some things that are kind of this seems like somebody at a computer what's going to be announced at E3 this year, so we have these set in, so when they do release, we can just have them up to pre-order, right? I'm of the mind that I don't think these are necessarily real. Not saying that some of these games aren't going to be announced at E3. I just don't think this is a list of, these are all the games that are going to be shown at E3, right? Because there's not a single new IP listed on here. So if it was a list they had received from publishers, we would see at least one new IP we're not familiar with, right? and be like, "Whoa, that's weird. What is that?" Yeah. What is your take on these Walmart leaks? Obviously, they could be real, they could be not. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure that some of this stuff will be right, whether they actually had the correct information or not. And then, of course, I think some of it will be wrong. There's so many leaks that people really get their hopes up on and really start believing. I remember when Red Dead 2 was thought to be announced coming up pretty soon from that point. There were so many different leaks of like, oh, my buddy works at a GameStop and they just got this poster of Red Dead Revolution in, There's so many different types of ways that people can kind of just troll. So either way, like I said, I'm sure some of it will be correct, but who knows. Also, we've got a problem here, Jerrad. We got a big old problem. This whole, like you mentioned Doom 2, right?
Yeah.
And Doom 2 is a game that already exists.
Yes.
And God of War is a game that already existed before the PS4. And Star Wars Battlefront is a game that already existed before the PS4. Like, this whole, we're just going to go back to the original title and almost like disregard these games. The thing is, it's a total disregard for the history, and when we as gamers are referring to it, then we have to be like, oh, Doom 2016 or God of War 2018 or God of War PS4. I'm all about like pulling the numbers out, like instead of having it God of War 4, just take the 4 off. But I do think you should just do a subtitle, like God of War,
Valhalla, Ragnarok,
Viking
something.
Apocalypse, yeah. But yeah, I just think like it's just gonna make it so confusing. And then in another 15 years, when we have Star Wars Battlefront or Doom or God of War, it's just like, what the fuck, man? It's weird that we have, and it's one thing when it was like the new Star Wars Battlefront, right? Or currently we have the latest Doom game. But then Doom 2, now there's 2 Dooms and 2 Doom 2s, and there's 2 Star Wars Battlefronts and 2 Star Wars Battlefront 2s. It's just like, this is becoming an issue for me. I'm not happy with it, Jerrad. I'm not happy.
Yeah, and it's tough because, like, Doom 2 could possibly be called Doom killing everything in sight, or, like, Hell Reigns or something. But, like, especially with Bethesda, they have a tendency to just put numbers at the end of their sequels and stuff. So it is an issue. I think the thinking there is like a lot of gamers nowadays probably, especially with Doom, didn't play those original Doom games. So it's like we can get away with it. But I do agree with you. It's like it's kind of like tarnishing the history there of like and making it confusing in terms of everyday conversation and stuff. So I do think there are some workarounds that can happen. I assume God of War 2018 2 and 3 might not be called 2 and 3. They might be God of War Valhalla, God of War Ragnarok, but we'll see. With Doom, if it is announced, I would assume it is Doom 2, and yeah, it is a weird issue. Battlefield 1 is an even weirder issue because there isn't a game, technically, another game called Battlefield 1. It's just called Battlefield because it's the first Battlefield game. So that makes it even started. It even makes it more confusing.
On the Battlefield games, Jerrad. It's so goofy.
Yeah, it is an issue, though. I agree with you there. Speaking of some issues, towards the end of this we'll be talking about, Nintendo had a big round of news. There was one thing I was originally going to include, but I don't think there was enough there. Nintendo's hiring for a new Legend of Zelda game. Shocker, the sky is blue, the grass is green. They're hiring for a new Zelda game. It's not surprising. But they did announce some other things. So their online service we had been waiting for, we had assumed that it was going to be launching in September. They stated it was lining up for that, but it previously got delayed. It is launching this September. It's going to be $20 a year. They have cheaper packages for 3 and 1 month, and it's going to be $35 for a family plan. So everyone can pitch in to pay for a yearly thing of Nintendo Online together for $35 and save y'all some dinero, some guap. And they also included cloud saves, which is like, cool, it's 2018, glad that exists. My biggest issue with this, you shouldn't have to pay to have cloud saves in 2018. That kind of bothers me. But it is what it is. At least we're getting them, which is kind of sometimes what you have to do with Nintendo. Is like, yeah, it sucks it's happening this way, but at least it's happening. Also, the service is going to be launching with 20 NES games, or NES games if you are that type of person, with multiplayer built-in online play, which is cool. We kind of expected that too. I think the big and most important part of this conversation, and I don't think it's necessarily dire, but it is something that we need to keep an eye on, is that regarding the Virtual Console, which everyone assumed would be announced alongside this, Nintendo actually emailed Kotaku, who was writing up about this, and stated there are currently no plans to bring classic games together under the Virtual Console banner, as has been done on other Nintendo systems. So, everyone gets crazy, gets their pitchforks and their torches and says, there's not going to be any Virtual Console on Nintendo Switch, I'm rioting in the streets. And other people are saying, oh, they're going to just put all of their games that are Virtual Console games through this paid service and they're going to rotate them out. That could be the case. That hasn't been explained yet. But if you're just reading this, contextualizing what they said, there's not going to be a Virtual Console banner. This doesn't mean that they're not going to be releasing classic old games on the Switch eShop. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that there's not going to be a Virtual Console banner. Right?
Yeah. But I still think either way that it means even if they started, let's say, releasing N64 or GameCube games on there, I think that it does mean the flow of it is going to be a lot slower. It's not going to be as often or as many games. And I'm definitely bummed about it. I mean, it's not dashing all hopes of getting those retro games on the console, but if you're going to do it like you did Virtual Console, why wouldn't you use that banner? It's already such a great and well-recognized banner, so I do feel like, if anything, they're just going to trickle out, and even at that, I'm not sure that we will get N64 or GameCube games or anything like that. And furthermore, this whole, we're going to give you these NES games and then take them away at some point or whatever. It just sucks, man. It just sucks. Yeah, like you said, I'm glad we're getting it, but it sucks that it's happening in this way.
The thing I want to throw in there, though, is that, it sucks that they're not keeping the Virtual Console banner, because it's already such a big brand. From a business perspective, though, the thing I could see the reason for them not doing it is that when people hear Virtual Console, they assume that it's all of a bunch of classic games from, for instance, say, N64, right? A bunch of classic games from the 64, including third-party published games. And we kind of currently live in an era where we're seeing all these classic games be published by the actual publishers, and they release them on their own accord. And it's kind of like, oh, I don't want you to have part of my pie. I want to have the entire pie myself. And from Nintendo's perspective, it could be like, we're not going to have any third-party games that are going to be a part of whatever this retro port thing is going to be, right? So why would we use Virtual Console when we can just label things as Nintendo Classics? Because Virtual Console does carry the weight of, it's not just going to be Nintendo published games, it's going to be a lot of our favorite games from that system. And though there's definitely an argument, and I agree with you that screw it, who cares if they're not a part of it, still put all the Nintendo games on a thing labeled Virtual Console. But from branding and stuff, maybe they just want to label all of these things as Nintendo Classics, right? I don't know. It's also releasing them this way gives them a better excuse to not have them be able to carry over to whatever the next thing is, so you have to buy them again. But that's kind of Nintendo's MO anyways, even with Virtual Console. So it's
I don't like the fact that if it is what you're saying, I want the third-party games too, so that kind of sucks as well. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, Nintendo, why can't you give people what they fucking want? I mean, people are willing to pay for this shit. And you're like, no, we're going to do it our way. And sometimes that works out for them, but there's a really decent amount of time where it fucking doesn't. And I just wish that they would stop being so goddamn hard-headed.
Some people are arguing...
It gets grating.
Some people are also arguing that the success of the minis is also hurting their willingness to push forward with this kind of thing really quickly or in a timely fashion, because they're so successful. But the counter argument to that is if they release these on Switch, they would see 10 times the sales. It wouldn't eat into that stuff because a lot of times the people who are buying the minis are people who are banking on nostalgia and want the physical product, right? So it's like, just because that exists doesn't mean this can't. I do agree with you, and I am on the side of more of this sucks than this is whatever, but I think people also have to catch their breath and understand that their statement, and they choose their wording very carefully. The virtual console, I can't say that, it's like a tongue twister for me, I guess. The virtual console banner will not be on Nintendo Switch. Read those words specifically. So,
sure,
you have to kind of figure out what that might be. Yeah, it might be something really crappy. I agree with you. That is a huge possibility. But the other possibility is that they just want to release it in this way that's not tied to that virtual console. You know, so I don't know. It's tough.
You mentioned that you shouldn't have to pay for cloud saves, and I totally agree. But at this point, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. $20 a year, sure. Take my money, assholes.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have to start over a 40-hour game if my console breaks. What the fuck ever, you know?
Get my memory wiped when I send it in for repairs.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do it at this point. And once again, that sucks, and that's a stupid way to do it. But if that's what it takes for me to be able to use cloud saves, I guess that's what's going to happen.
I think the pricing is good, though. I think their pricing is solid for what we assume it'll offer. There's no way they could have come out at PSN or Xbox Live price points because everyone would have laughed. I think $20 for the year is reasonable. That being said, we'll see once the service launches how good are the online services.
Right.
How often are they going to be updating the games? How many games get removed? How good are the cloud saves? Do we only get a certain amount of memory allocated for cloud saves? That's not a reasonable amount. There's a lot of questions that still hang in the air, but as it sits with the information we currently know, I think $20 a year and $35 for a family plan of, I think it's up to 8 accounts, are pretty solid numbers. Also weird, this is launching almost in a bunch of other territories. This isn't launching in Japan in terms of it being paid. So I don't know if they're just like weird. Not charging in Japan. They're like, it's free.
That's fucking weird, man. And you know, we've talked about this a bunch, but just another example of how the Switch obviously came out before it was fully done cooking. Like, the true online service isn't launching until like year and a half after the console. Like, what the fuck were you doing, Nintendo? So yeah, who knows, man? We'll see.
The other thing I wanted to mention, this isn't a news story. I just thought it was interesting. You know, Overkill's The Walking Dead, that game that from the Payday 2 developers. I don't know if you've seen any of the trailers they've released for the characters in the game.
I haven't.
So what I'm assuming is it looks like it's going to take on a Left 4 Dead style approach in terms of there's 4 set characters that 4 people playing multiplayer choose from. In terms of gameplay and all that stuff, I'm not comparing it to Left 4 Dead, but you know how in Left 4 Dead you load in, you have a character, right? It's already, you don't create your character or anything. It's a specific character with a voice dialogue and stuff like that. It seems like that's what they're doing with this game. The first trailer was this black gentleman who I don't remember his name, but he carried around a bat and he was more of like the melee-based character. The second character was an Asian female who seemed like the healer, the healer of the group, the nurse. And they have their backstories and stuff. The third one was really interesting. It showcased an older man, had to be in maybe his 60s, white beard, white hair, walking through this highway, sits in this car, sees a picture of a little girl and starts talking to somebody, you assume, and then it's revealed that it's a zombie, like strapped in with a seatbelt, talking about his granddaughter, and how he remembers her and stuff like that, and he's just talking to her, and you're like, oh, he probably lives on a compound with his granddaughter, and he ends up killing the zombie, and it's very compelling what he talks about. Older gentleman, and it zooms out, and you see like tons of zombies around him, and his closing words are, I'll find you, I don't know if her name's Catherine, but it was her name. I'll find you, what her name was. So these trailers are, I think, really interesting, and they're selling these characters. It's going to be interesting to see what the actual gameplay is. They haven't showed it. These are all cinematic, beautifully done computer graphics, but they haven't shown gameplay yet. And this seems like a game, honestly, that Skybound is forcing to finally put out. This game's been in development forever, you know?
Right.
We're kind of nearing the end of the zombie zeitgeist in terms of mainstream appeal. zombie things will still be popular and can be successful, but as with Walking Dead and other properties, we're kind of seeing that way down, and I think Skybound was anticipating this game coming out a lot sooner. But yeah, the trailer looked really interesting. But I guess we'll close out the show now. In terms of what we're going to be playing, finishing up Wolfenstein 2. Can't wait for you to play it on the Switch. That's where you're going to play it, right, Jordan? If I remember correctly?
Yeah, waiting on it.
Great game. Love it. So good. Can't wait to talk with Dom about it whenever he gets back. Non-spoilery, of course.
Love it.
Going to be... I've continued working on my living dex in Pokemon. For those of you unfamiliar, a living dex is where you have a complete Pokédex, but you also have the evolutions of the Pokemon. And the reason people do it is because when you enter a new game and you want to complete the dex, you have to have every evolution, right? So you can save the beginning evolutions and just evolve them, but that's way too complicated. And especially with modern Pokemon games with the Pokemon Bank, it's easy to just transfer them all over. You don't have to do it one by one anymore. Thank God they added features where you can select a box of Pokemon and move them and transfer them at once. Really quick, really fast. But I've been working on my living dex. I think out of the 790 or 800 Pokemon, I currently have... I want to say in the 500 range. And this isn't something I go hard on all the time 24/7. It's just whenever I pick up Pokemon, I get super invested in it again. I'm I'll handle about, 20 to 50, could be 20, closer to 20 or less than, could be closer to 50 depending on how I feel in that time when I'm really craving Pokemon, but I always chip away at it. So it's really fun. I just Pokemon games are comfort food games for me. I just like playing them when I'm doing something else. It just feels comfortable to me. They're the only turn-based game I, for sure will probably enjoy when they come out. There's other turn-based games I can pick up and really like, but I know Pokemon is my turn-based strategy game, which is strange because I've never really liked those style of games, but this is one of the first games I ever played and fell in love with, so excited to play more of that. No movie comes out this week of note, right? Because it's Deadpool and Solo, or Solo then Deadpool. Solo's the 11th. Solo's the 25th, I think.
Yeah, Deadpool Solo.
18th, yeah. It's pretty much it. I want to get around to watching A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
And there was I want to get around to watching Shape of Water as well. Those are my backlog of movies I want to watch, so I want to get to those. And then it's pretty much it for me. Yeah, what about you, Jordan?
So, definitely some more God of War. Definitely, I'll be reading me comics and me watching me anime. Let's see what else. Just before the show, you told me and broke my heart that Brooklyn Nine-Nine was canceled.
Yeah.
Which is a great comedy series. I love it. But, it's got to end sometime, I guess. So, it'll be finishing up soon. But shout out to that show because it is very, very funny.
Oh, Jordan, one thing I forgot to tell you is, are you familiar with the Lego Brickheads line?
I don't think so.
So the Brickheads are these little... They're like Lego's version of... Pop Figs.
Gotcha.
So they're basically these little models that you buy, and they're for specific characters, and you build them yourself. I think they're 90 to 120 pieces. And they're really cool. They have them for Marvel, right? So they have Hulk and Thanos and Captain America, and they have Iron Man's new suit. So they're really cute. They're small. So I have one of Hulk, right? Because Hulk's my favorite superhero. And
sure.
I was the creative in me was I wonder if I can, because Lego has this feature called Pick a Brick where you can order specific bricks. I was I wonder if I can just reverse engineer this build and make one of on my own. And I made a pretty cool looking custom Beast version. Beast from X-Men. I'll make sure to send you a picture. It looks pretty cool. I have his iconic X-Men belt and his undies. And yeah, I made it from scratch. They don't have any of the X-Men, at least not yet until the deal goes through. But I made a custom Beast one, and I made a custom X-23 one, but my parts for X-23 haven't come in yet. So, pretty excited about those. I'll make sure to send you a picture. Sorry, go ahead. What are we going to be playing? It's just something I forgot to mention.
Oh, you're fine, man. So, what is left? Oh yeah, I was gonna talk a little bit about Darling in the Franxx, the anime series. So I mentioned it when it first started, and definitely I would say my most anticipated, or one of my most anticipated, because shout out, we just started within the last few weeks Tokyo Ghoul season 3, which I'm not crazy about, but it's still good, and Steins Gate Zero, or Steins Gate season 2, which is pretty good so far. Love both of those anime series, especially Steins Gate. I fucking love Steins Gate. Anyways, highly anticipated Darling in the Franxx, co-production between A1 and Trigger. Trigger is, I mean, they're both some of the best anime studios, but Trigger is well known for its action, and this is a mech series, giant robots, and I definitely enjoy it, but it is a lot more tedious and slow than I expected, and a lot less action, especially with Trigger being so well known for their action. But I'm still enjoying it. Latest episode just came out today, or at least the dub did. So I'll continue watching that, but I just thought I'd give a little update there because I've been a little surprised at how the story is good, and it is a cool world that they're in and all that, but I am surprised that a mech series co-created by Trigger has as little action as it does. So we'll see how that ends up, but yeah, Steins Gate Zero just started. Like I said, love Steins Gate, and it's cool because Steins Gate Zero is like a divergent path, because Steins Gate's all about time travel, and so it's not like an actual sequel to the first season. It's basically a divergent path of the 23rd episode, which is not even the last episode of the season or season. So really interesting what they're doing there, and I am enjoying it so far. So yeah,
Nice. Anime is always a huge list. I need to hop back into My Hero Academia. I was really enjoying it. I just need to get back to watching it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you for bringing that up. Also, a little shout out to that show because season 3 I'm really enjoying. Several episodes in. I'm all caught up with the show, but it is several episodes into season 3, I should say. And what they're doing with it is really cool. A lot of people love the tournament arc in season 2. I wasn't crazy about it, but the kind of training camp thing that they're doing this season I'm really digging. So saw another article, I think it was on Kotaku, about how My Hero Academia is a superhero show for people that are tired of superheroes. And I've talked about this on the show before. I'm a little bit tired of hearing that about this show because that's kind of all I hear about this show. In that way, I do think it's a little overrated because people just constantly talk about how, oh, it subverts superhero tropes, and it's a whole new take and a whole new spin on that. I don't necessarily agree. I think it actually leans into a lot of tropes, and in a lot of ways, it just kind of feels like X-Men anime. But I still like it a lot. I just get tired of hearing how fucking revolutionary it is all the time. But regardless, I am very much enjoying season 3, so I'm glad you're watching it and can't wait to hear.
I hate how all of these old fogies are trying to be the first person to say superhero fatigue is real and wait for it to be right. Like, they say it and then they just wait to see if, like, oh, is it actually a thing yet? Is it? No? Okay, okay. Yeah, it's... Like,
I had seen several YouTube analysis videos in last season, during season 2 of My Hero Academia, being like, talking about how it subverts tropes, talking about how it's revolutionary for the superhero genre. And then, several days ago, Kotaku's like, this is a superhero show for people who are tired of superheroes? Like, okay, clearly you think you have an original idea, but that's not necessarily the case, so I'm definitely tired of hearing that, but like I said, I'm really enjoying the show.
I want to close out the show, but, like, people don't understand that, like, especially in, like, Hollywood, everything goes through waves. Westerns were the big blockbuster hit for a long time, right? Or in the early days of film, Westerns were huge. Then it slowly shifted to the 80s action movies, right? Obviously, there was different genres of those movies. Alien is way different than Rambo, but you had the action movies. 90s is where you started seeing the infiltration of the espionage, like spy type movies, really heavily hitting. And now that we're currently in the age of superheroes, and they've kind of replaced a lot of action movies. We still have the Mission Impossibles and the James Bonds and the Fast and Furiouses, but like, it's fine. It just bothers me that these people are so vehemently against it. It's like, it's fine. Anyways,
we're not gonna get 4 superhero, 6 superhero movies a year for the next 100 years. Like, chill the fuck out. Yeah,
exactly. Also, it's like 3 or 4 movies a year. There's 365 days. You know how many movies release every year?
I was actually thinking about that earlier on the show when we weren't even. I think you were talking about the Avengers game or whatever. All this talk about superhero fatigue. It's like, it's not like there's a new Avengers movie every fucking day, man. Like, this is being overblown, you know?
Yeah, it's like,
you look at any other genre, and there's 4 to 6 of those movies released a year, you know?
Yeah,
like
at the very least.
Espionage, or Mission Impossibles, or, coming of age, or midlife crisis dramas, which, holy shit, you want to talk about an overbloated genre. That shit is and basically always has been all over the fucking place. So.
I just think it's older people, and maybe people who aren't in touch, because there are older people who are into comics, having to come to terms with the fact that I think superhero movies are going to eventually become, and they are currently, a genre of film that are going to be a part of film for the foreseeable future. You know, it's fine. You can. Yeah, this whole thing irritates me so much. Those Kotaku headlines are like, shut up. The whole reason I like My Hero Academia is because I think it does also lean into those. It does subvert some tropes, but it leans into that stuff, and I love it. And it is X-Men anime, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait till you get to season 3. It's like, this is fucking X-Men anime right here, and I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you guys for listening to episode 97. Next week we'll have Dom back, and we're getting closer and closer, inching towards E3. We're going to have guests on each of our E3 predictions podcasts. I definitely look forward to that. Like I said, Dom will be back next week. If you can, please follow us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, follow us on iTunes, leave us a review. It definitely helps us out. Like the YouTube videos too, that helps as well. And tell your friends about us. If you have somebody that wants to listen to a gaming podcast and needs somebody else to talk to them about the latest and greatest games from Square Enix every year or every 10 years, depending on how they decide to release them, let them know about us. Your boys at Controlled Interest.
Like, subscribe, share.
Yeah. Smash that like button. If you can, follow us on Twitter. I am at Jerrad_. Jordan is at Malamotus. Dom, who's not here today, is at Dom's Oreos. And our group Twitter, where we tweet out all of the latest podcasts and other videos we put out, is Controlled Interests. That's at CTRLINT, Controlled Interests abbreviated. You can also go to controlledinterest.com to get all of the latest uploads and information there as well. We'll catch you guys next week in episode 98. See you guys next time. Bye.